Bluffdale, Utah. Although the new NSA data center was online, but not all servers were used for the same purpose. Nearly half the data center was being used to test new program before they are approved for the NSA use. Today, all the servers that were usually being used for testing new programs was fully booked for the whole of the next month. The reason they booked it for the whole month is because they needed to fully make sure the program that will be testing be safe and harmless to their overall system. Noah entered a room full of people in front of computers waiting for him with a hard drive on his hand. This room was directly connected to the servers that is used for testing. The hard drive had the program that is to be tested. After he sat on his chair, he took the hard drive and inserted it to the port and transferred the program to the server. The moment it finished copying, he removed it and put it aside to make if a problem happened to their servers, they had something to check it first. Okay guys, the program is already in the server ready to start testing. I want everyone to focus, understood? Said Noah while standing and making sure everyone heard him and is focusing. This is the program that we suspect to be the one giving us a headache, but it might also be something else. So make sure you look at the server's behaviors when we begin operation, okay? Double down while also emphasizing on the importance of it to them. Yes, replied nearly everyone except the introverted ones who were just focusing on their screens, looking at the server's parameters. Noah sat down after being satisfied by their focus and decided to start the program and see if it could do what it promised. Holy fuck, said some dude in the room while looking at his screen. Because what was happening is nothing they expected a program to behave at all. The moment the program started, it took control of the entire server and it started scrutinizing all the programs in the server's programs. The bug zapper started checking all the program in the servers for their weaknesses. Although they could stop it from working, but since they were testing it, they decided to let it do its thing while monitoring whatever the server is experiencing. The program, Bug Zapper, started operating the server to its full capability to reduce the waiting time for the program to finish its job faster. After 3 hours of the servers being punished by the program decided to spare the server by finishing its work of looking through all the programs in the server. During those 3 hours, it was a living hell for those who were doing the job of looking at the server's real-time operational data. The reason is that the server was made to test many programs at once without interfering with each other. Another reason is that there is no program in their current program library that was capable of utilizing this server in its entirety because it was massive. The exact capacity of the center is classified even to those in the NSA low access, but some estimates suggest it can handle and process up to 5 zettabytes of data. So, what kind of program do you think is capable of utilizing it to its fullest potential? To put that in perspective, if you had a 5 zettabytes of songs, you could listen to them for over 10 billion years. Now that is a long-ass concert if you ask me. Now imagine if your job is to analyze how a program utilized the server to its full capacity. Yes, that. May God have mercy on you. Now for the rest of it. The moment Bug Zapper finished its job, it started dumping PDF after PDF for every program that existed in the server. Bug Zapper has went through more than 100 heavy programs in just 3 hours. These programs weren't just like those of Facebook and the like. They were massive programs that were meant to be able to utilize the massive amount of data they were collecting. So they needed massive infrastructure in their programs to be able to handle it. In return, they had some bugs. I meant many. This meant that, since they were heavy programs, meant the amount of weaknesses were too much. Have you ever seen a PDF with a size of 2 gigabytes or more with just words only? There was 45 of them here. We are fucked. That's what Noah was thinking when he looked at the number and size of the nearly 100 PDF on the screen. He chose the one with the smallest size of about 350 megabytes to just look at the contents of the PDF. When he opened it, he nearly fainted when he saw it had 15K pages, meaning that if even the smallest one among them is 15K pages, the largest will be the size of a library. Fucking oh, he thought as he started reading the documentation done by the program. The more he read, the brighter his face became, because nearly 10 pages were spent on explaining just one vulnerability, how to exploit it, and how to solve it while going to the excruciating details of it. The moment he finished reading the first 100 pages, he knew that they lucked out on finding this program. So, he called her superior and informed her about their findings. When she heard the full explanation, she immediately suspended all the non-urgent projects and diverted all of the manpower to this project for them to look through all the PDFs by the end of the week. After that, they will prepare for presentation because she will have to present it to Amar. president if what he said turns out to be true. Somewhere in America. Comrade, where are you on the investigation on what happened to those social media companies? Asked a voice on the other side of the phone. We are still looking through suspects, sir, as the FBI and NSA seems to be on the lookout when it comes to this case, and if we act rashly, it might attract their attention to us, replied Vladimir. So, when will the report be ready? Asked the voice calmly. Within 3 months the earlies if we don't want to alert the feds, and I'm working on converting someone in the FBI to our side. By that time he will be ours, and we will have their full investigation report in front of us, replied Vladimir with confidence. Okay, stay in contact, said the voice. Yes, sir, replied Vladimir, and waited for the one on the other side to end the call. After the phone call ended, Vladimir left his FedEx car and carried a box to deliver to its address and continue with his day-to-day work as Jimmy. Back at the NSA. While others were reading through the PDF documents, the remaining few were trying to use Bugzapper on the Chinese and Russian-sensitive infrastructure that I currently online in order to have access to their full list of vulnerabilities. That's when they encountered a problem, and after a few tries they discovered what it was. They couldn't use Bugzapper for anything online. They needed to have the source code of the entire program locally and in the same device as Bugzapper for it to do its magic. This was also why the program only searched just over 100 of the programs, as there were more than 1,000 of incomplete projects in the server, but since they were incomplete, Bugzapper didn't even look at them. This was the answer Aaron came up after his talk with Sarah on how to prevent people using it as a tool to hack other people's programs and systems. While the original Bugzapper could do its magic without having to be in the same device and only needing just the internet connection, the one that he was going to release commercially, which an example of it is in the NSA's handcant, making it a tad more difficult to exploit the program to harm others. That was one of the many new harm prevention measures he implemented into the commercial program. This can also be used as an advertisement method to reduce the fear of companies having their websites being breached by everyone, and if a breach happened nonetheless, it can also be used to help narrow down the suspects in a much easier fashion than if it could be done through online from the other side of the globe. And since they didn't know about the existence of the original, more powerful version, they can't force him to give it to them. This will help Aaron by reducing the scrutiny he will receive from the government if they thought that is all they could get from him. And also, since the program was written using the Prometheus++, it will take them discovering the language to be able to hack it, and even if they discovered the language, they will have to pass through the robust security measures Aaron put throughout the way to get access to the divine scripture, source code. 2 weeks later. White House. In the Oval Room, the National Security Committee was in a meeting to hear about the findings of their investigation on the app. Usually things such as these are handled by their respective departments, and if the respective department project needed something outside their operative jurisdiction, they all just have to settle it between them. But today's meeting was set due to the insistence of the D&I director, as he said it was capable of changing one of the branches in their current warfare. Hence the meeting was settled. Sir, after our short testing of the app, we managed to discover more than 1 million weaknesses on the current NSA systems and programs in our test servers, said James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, who is also the head of intelligence community. He received a report and presentation from the NSA, and he deemed it important for the national security of their country. When we installed the program in our test servers, it started looking at the weaknesses of all the programs in the servers, and after that it listed them, showed us how to find them and how to solve them. We followed the explanation of the program to the last letter, and after that we failed to hack even the less secure program we had. If we implement it through the military, and all our government online infrastructure could secure without having to worry about Russian, Chinese, and other countries' hacking attempts, meaning we can focus on only developing programs without having to put too much time on the security of it. We can just run it through the Bugzapper, and it will show us its weaknesses, and if we close them it will be secure enough, meaning we can redirect the funding to the development of other things. Finished his explanation while others were listening attentively. Have you tried to see if we could use it to hack adversary nations? Asked Obama after digesting the information given to him. When we tried that, the program couldn't do it because it needed the source code of the program to do it, so we can't use it for offensive purposes unless we have the complete source code of the program we wanted to do it, replied the James. How fast and how much do we need to implement it to all our sensitive infrastructure? Asked Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense. We estimate that it will take about 2 months, but for the price of the program we need to negotiate with the company that made the program. But we need to come to decisions fast because the company was preparing for commercial release of this program, and they decided to inform us so that it doesn't negatively impact us if it was released without our preparation, answered James and continued. But if we want to implement it to our entire sensitive infrastructure, we would need to pay them at least $10 billion, finished talking James. What if we share the cost with our NATO allies? Asked Joe Biden, the vice president. Yes, that makes sense. It will also keep us on their good sides, added Obama. Also because if they learned it when the company officially releases it to the market, it will make their responses unorganized since they will all be rushing to cover their own infrastructure's weaknesses, but if we jointly do it, the harm that will be caused will be reduced to the minimum, said John Kerry, Secretary of State. They continued to make their plan with more details. The meeting continued for about 3 hours. After it was completed, they left with a small plan that is to be planned in more detail for the NATO-wide implementation of the use of Bugzapper in their important infrastructure. They would have a meeting in 2 weeks' time, and during that period the Secretary of State would have to contact the related governments and plan for their joint implementation. This period will also be used to contact the company that made the program for their joint negotiation. Sarah was in a meeting with the department that was currently dealing with the making of the server farm. So, what step are we in? Asked Sarah. We have already completed the procurement of the location, and we are on its final step of planning the renovation of it, but we are waiting for the engineering firm to complete its redesigning of it, answered the head of procurement department. When will the renovation be complete? We expect it to be done within 3 months. What about the procurement of the machines and hardwares for the servers? We have already completed ordering them, but only a few of them have arrived, and we have stored them in a warehouse we are currently renting. For those that haven't arrived, we are expecting them to be delivered within the month, answered Dave, the head of procurement department. Sarah listened while shaking her head in acknowledgement. Then she turned to the head of human resources, HR. What about hiring? Is it going as planned? She asked. We are currently having problems when it comes to hiring experienced workers, since we don't have any positive reputation or any product in the industries, replied the head of HR. For now, just focus on hiring graduates that we can teach. We will start getting the experienced one when we release our program to the market, replied Sarah by giving directions to the head of HR. Yes, ma'am. They continued the meeting about the preparation of the official release of Bugzapper. On August 19th, NATO held a closed-door meeting in Brussels, the reason for which remains unknown to the public. The meeting was attended by high-level officials from NATO member countries, including the United States, United Kingdom, France, and Germany, among others. Speculation ran rampant in the media and among international observers about the purpose of the meeting, with many suggesting that it may have been related to a developing crisis or security threat. However, NATO officials refused to comment on the nature of the discussions or the reason for the meeting's secrecy, leading to further speculation and uncertainty. Despite the lack of information, many in the international community expressed concern about the closed-door nature of the meeting, with some criticizing NATO for potentially undermining its commitment to transparency and democratic principles. However, others argued that in certain situations, confidentiality may be necessary to facilitate frank and open discussions among high-level officials. Ultimately, the true reason for the meeting remained shrouded in mystery, leaving many to wonder what was discussed behind closed doors and what implications it may have had for NATO and the international community as a whole. This was the article that was released by the New York Times a week after the meeting in the Oval Office. This showed the efficiency of the Secretary of State, as usually thing like these meeting takes about a month to coordinate and prepare, but since he said it was of utmost importance, they managed to expedite the meeting day to just a week later. During the meeting, the American representative explained about the program. This was one of the best endorsement a company could ever want. But while these meetings were happening, Sarah and the company were still clueless about the agenda of the meeting, and they were still waiting for the NSA's evaluation. The reason the government didn't inform them is because they wanted to have the joint agreement of the procurement of the program before they informed them. This means they will also be met with unexpected situation and be unprepared, making the government have a chance to secure a better deal due to their unpreparedness. But this was just a bullshit idea since the company could just postpone the negotiations due to the suddenness of it anyway. The meeting ended with the country's joint agreement for a group procurement of the program, but they also wanted to make the company nerf the version of the one that will be released for the public. This was due to them wanting to have an edge when it comes to infrastructure security by making the enemy or non-friendly countries use the commercially available version of the system. But by wanting to make the company agree into doing this, they came to an agreement of increase the amount they are willing to fork out. After about a week of the closed-door meetings, they returned to their respective countries and began preparing for the implementation of the program after they come to an agreement with GIA Technologies. The company continued completing their available tasks while expecting an answer from the NSA about whether they will continue with the negotiation or not. After about a month of waiting for the NSA to complete their review of the app, they finally replied, but the reply was nothing expected at all, although it was a positive one. The email informed them that they have passed the assessment and they will be returning to the negotiation table, but they will be negotiating not as America but as NATO. So, they gave them a week of preparation time to prepare for the negotiations. When Sarah read the email, she was happy that they passed the assessment, although she was sure they will, but she also felt the pressure of negotiating such a big contract for the first time. So, she decided to attend the meeting, but she will not be the head negotiator. That will be taken by the law firm. She will be a spectator and only agree to the deal if they come to an agreement. They must come to an agreement, else they will be forced by the government to do so, and she didn't want it to reach that place. While the company was preparing for their meeting with the NATO team, Aaron was finally ready to exact his revenge. He was currently in his workroom, sitting in front of his computer, ready to begin enacting his revenge. Let's see if you will have the same proud look if you lose everything you proud yourself having, was what he was thinking as he began to type in his computer, beginning the first steps of making the professor's life a living misery. He first began by hacking the university's news bulletin. When he gained admin privilege of the site, he started publishing the professor's misdeed from him receiving bribe, writing recommendation letter to making rich kids pass, and many more. He also added corresponding evidence to make the announcement foolproof. After he completed writing the article, he timed it to be published in a week after today, as this was the second step of his many plans to break him step by taking everything from him. Next, he accessed the server where the contacts information of every student, teacher, and anyone related to the university and programmed it so that they will receive a notification the moment the article went live. Now, let's see how your wife will react to the news of you cheating on her, Aaron said while smiling as he was sending her the intimate messages, pictures, and videos between the professor and the secretary, making sure that she understand beyond doubt that he was cheating on her no matter how dense she might be. Removing his access to an influential helping hand, which was his wife. That's the reason of this step. Him removing the professor's wife from the equation will mean that he doesn't have to fight against her influence to get to professor. In what way is better to remove her from equation than telling her that her husband is cheating on her? Although Aaron didn't know why her family or the professor's wife was influential, he didn't manage to find it from the internet. Even after he tried digging deeper, he still found nothing as he didn't know how to even investigate someone online. So he decided to remove her from the professor because an enemy you know their abilities is better than the one you don't know. After doing that, he decided to punish the private investigator who was the one who found his information after being paid by the professor. Although the man was just doing his job, he needed to pay as what he did caused a series of problems for Aaron. He went to the private investigator's website and after he gained access, he deleted all of the company's business data, emails, and every bit of data they had on their servers and their backups, making it so they will only have the information only if they had it offline somewhere. This was all he did to the private investigator. He didn't need to do more as this might even make their business bankrupt. Now the only one who remained was the new scholarship head, who approved his maximum interest rate in his payment. He planned to deal with him after he moved to the second stage of the professor's revenge. After he finished doing that, he returned to his normal job as he was waiting for his plan to move. Just as he was about to start working on increasing the security measure to bug zapper after he was inspired from hacking the site, someone opened the door and spoke to him, making him stop his work. "Brother, can you take me to the supermarket?" is what his younger brother Henry asked. Aaron turned to him and asked, "For what?" "I need some material for my homework." "Isn't Mother at home?" asked Aaron, trying to push the job to his mother. "Mom went out with Dad again today," replied Henry. "Again?" "Okay, let's go," stood Aaron as he gave up. Although he was happy about their parents spending time together, they were too euthanasia about it, as if they were trying to compensate for the time they lost when they were looking after them. So, he was pretty sure someone new will join their family soon. His younger brother Henry was too happy to go with him because he can ask him to buy him anything, and he will end up agreeing to it while his mother will deny it if it's useless. After a short preparation, they went down to the garage and took the car and left for the market to buy homework material. A week after Sarah and the company was informed about the meeting with NATO representatives, the day finally arrived, and they could be seen sitting in a conference where each side of the long table was taken by each of them. "Welcome. We really didn't expect the situation to escalate this much," said Sarah as she started the meeting with small talks. "When the U.S. called for an emergency meeting with the NATO members, we also didn't know that there was something this detrimental to our security being prepared for public release," replied the representative of NATO, showing a little bit of displeasure, but he managed to hide it faster before many of the people in the room noticed it. Sarah and the senior law firm member managed to catch it by they decided to not bring it up. "We would have moved to other allied countries after we implemented it with the U.S. government. By then we would have someone to point as an example, making it easier to persuade your countries, but who knew that the government became our salesperson," said Sarah. She was smiling, feeling happy that the government saved them a lot of time. "Now let's get to the main topic, shall we?" said the senior member of the law firm, as he knew if he let them continue to divert the main topic, they might cause some problems before they even begin the negotiations. "Yes, the faster we come to an agreement, the faster we can implement it," agreed the NATO representative and continued. "So, after being informed by the U.S. government, we as NATO came to an agreement of buying the right to the program as a group and paying it as one entity for the countries involved. Also, we would like to request for the public version of the program to be less powerful than the one we will receive. As for the price, it can be negotiated if the above conditions are agreed." Sarah shook her head after hearing their demands and replied, "Nerfing the program is technically impossible for now, as the program is a black box technology. It was created using machine learning, meaning it taught itself, so we didn't know how it works as we are still trying to dissect it." Or that is what Aaron told her to tell them if they asked for this same thing. Aaron wanted it to remain the same because he didn't want any country to have any advantage, as it may lead to him being put in danger if they ended up pursuing the original version, meaning the current version, if they release a nerfed version to the public. "As for you paying as a single entity, it's not a problem as long as you factor in the amount of courtiers that will be using the program under the single payment. Meaning we will count every NATO member as a customer and price them according to their infrastructure and add it up to come up with a single price. But since you are our first customer, we will give you a 20% discount for it," added the senior lawyer from the company law firm. "So have you done calculating the estimated amount?" asked the NATO representative. "After we factored in everything, including the discount, the amount comes to $10.5 billion, answered the lawyer. "But that price was bullshit. There was no discount in the first place. Every country was expected to pay about $375 million if you divide it by NATO member, 28. But if it was a standalone price, the U.S. would have had to cough about $2.5 billion for it. The reasoning to it was that if they paid, they will have bought the program's license for life, meaning unless they released a new and better, then they might have to pay a little for the upgrade, but it won't happen anyway." "That's higher than we expected," said the NATO representative, making a frowned face. But he was lying. They expected to cough at least $15 billion for lifetime license. But who said he shouldn't try to bargain the price right? With that, they continued haggling back and forth between the NATO and GIA representative. This time Sarah was quiet as she left their representative represent them, as he was more experienced when it came to haggling. The negotiations ended on a positive note as they promised to reply to them within the week. Sarah was relieved the negotiation went better than she expected. What she didn't know was that NATO by itself was desperate for the program because they were almost always dealing with Chinese, Russian, and many other non-friendly countries' hacking attempts. Them having the program will make the weight of dealing with these problems a little bit easier, and it will help them divert the resources in developing more sophisticated programs that will be helping them. Sarah returned to dealing with her work, as it continued piling even though they haven't released the program yet. Aaron continued completing his daily quest, but last month he suddenly gained a massive amount of SP. This coincided with the day after the NSA took the program for evaluation. At first he expected the SP amount to continue being reduced if the program continued being used, but since the programs that were tested in the NSA server were massive and from a different category, the system counted them differently from the social media scannings it did before. So, he earned about 150,000 SP in total. Currently, he had a total of 195, 600 SP. With the amount he could buy a few cheap things from the system. Although they were deemed worthless by the system, if they are released to the world, they would be deemed a great leap from current technology. While he had the SP amount needed to buy something from the store, he didn't need to rush buying random things from the store, but another reason for it is that he needed to finish his revenge and remove the clot in his heart in order to continue with his life without the anger he felt toward anyone. That was why he finally started his revenge he was pushing behind in the beginning. In some heavily guarded mansion somewhere, Rena Noga Johanneton Stav Rothschild woke up and found herself alone in the bed. This has become a usual thing to her, as her husband started distancing himself from her for about a few years now. Although it was arranged married, did not work between them, as the arranger of it is someone she hate to the bone. It was orchestrated by her brother as his revenge to her for joining the inheritance war between siblings. And since he won, she couldn't go against it, because if she does, she would be removed herself from having any position in the family at all. It's old-fashioned, but they keep it as it worked in the past. They expect it to work in the future too. As they said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Sun Tzu. She decided to not rebel against it because her chances weren't null yet. This is because although her brother was the next in line, he wasn't the leader of the family yet. This means he can be removed from there, but if he had already become the head, she would have denied the marriage, as she would have no chance at all. So, she sacrificed her marriage life for a slim chance to remove her brother from the seat and take his place as the family head. Although she kept trying to find ways to leave the marriage, she couldn't divorce her husband without any reason, as she needed a powerful reason to convince her family to allow it. She even hired some private investigator to find anything that could result in divorce, but she kept receiving nothing from them. She suspected that her brother was the one sabotaging her efforts, but she didn't manage to find the evidence for it. After she finished cleaning herself, she ate breakfast and headed to her workroom. Although they have offices in Wall Street and many locations where she could go for work, she preferred working at home in her cozy working room. This didn't cause any problem, as her secretary was there to do the coordination and communication, so she didn't feel the difference at all. Though she visits the company she was responsible for randomly for inspections or important board meetings, but still they were few of them in a year, so most of the time is spent at home. After she entered the workroom office, she started reading from the pile of papers that were currently on her table. After 3 hours of reading through and signing them, she finally finished, and she decided to move to her computer. Although others usually start their works by reading emails, she didn't have to do that, because if it is important, her secretary would have informed her of it. Another reason for that is that not many people have her email address, so she almost didn't receive any emails most of the time. This reduced the importance of her looking through the computer, as all the important documents are printed and presented to her by her secretary. When she opened her email, she expected the always empty inbox, but contrary to it, she found a new email with a very intruding headline. Subject: Your husband is cheating on you. Dear Rena Rona Rothschild, I am reaching out to you with great sadness. I have some information that I believe you should know. This is a delicate matter, and I understand that it may be challenging to hear, but I believe that it is important that you are aware of what has been happening in your life. I have learned that your husband has been unfaithful to you for several years. I am deeply sorry to be the one to have to tell you this. However, I feel that you have a right to know the truth. Please understand that this information is being shared with you out of concern for your well-being and not to cause you any pain. I understand that this is a difficult time for you, and I am here to offer my support in any way that I can. Here is the evidence to support it. Attachment: proof size, 15 gigabytes. Take care, and in the future I might need your help. Hope you remember this. Sincerely. Although the information was what she really needed, what surprised her was that the sender knew her full name, including the middle one. This came as a surprise to her because the list of people who knew her didn't exceed even 50, and almost all of them were from her family. Another reason for being surprised is because she knew that no one from the family will help her finding these evidences if it meant going against the next head of the family, her brother. Then is he someone outside the family who informed me? But how did he even find my email? She asked herself, as she waited for the attachment file to finish downloading in order to take a look at the evidence. It doesn't matter anyway, but if the evidence gives me the proof I need, I will help you if you ever ask for it, she said as she clicked the WinRAR folder. When she was about to click the Move to Folder button, a pop-up appeared written, "Upgrade to Winrar Premium to support us." She clicked X to close it and continued to click on the Move to Folder button. She waited about 30 seconds for it to be moved to the INI folder. After it completed, she immediately opened the folder to finally look at the evidence. When she opened the folder, she gasped at the amount of different files. Cheating proof. The people he cheated with list and their informations.pdf. Pictures folder. Video folder. Audio folder. Messages folder. Emails folder. When she opened the PDF titled, "The People He Cheated with List and Their Informations.pdf," a list appeared in front of her that had more than 18 women's with their full information. This impressed her, but not too much, as she could find anyone's information as long as she knew his or her name. But something caught her attention. At the beginning of every woman there was a tag number 01. It was different for every woman. So she decided to go to the folder and paste it to the in-folder search place. The moment she clicked enter, all the information labeled with number 01 from all the folders appeared in front of her. Number 01 picture 00001.png. Number 01 picture 00002.png. Number 01 picture 00003.png. Number 01 picture 00004.png. Number 01 picture 00005.png. Number 01 picture 00006.png. Number 01 picture 00007.png. Number 01 video 00001.mov. Number 01 video 00002.mov. Number 01 video 00003.mov. Number 01 video 00004.mov. Number 01 video 00005.mov. Number 01 audio 00001.mp3. Number 01 audio 00002.mp3. Number 01 audio 00003.mp3. Number 01 audio 00004.mp3. Number 01 audio 00005.mp3. Number 01 messages.pdf, size 275 MB. Number 01 emails.pdf, size 547 MB. She tried with the ID of the second woman, and a list with just her evidence appeared. That's when she understood why the folder started with their persona information. With this amount of evidence, I won't have to worry my brother being against it, unless he wants to humiliate the family's reputation, she said as she started reading the evidence. She will use this evidence as a reason for her seeking a divorce. If they deny it, although they won't, she will just threaten to release it to the public and just humiliate the family. She was rich, but even she didn't have a premium winrar. I wonder how the company stayed alive. Although it has been months, Professor Rotnem was still trying to regain his reputation in the circle. It wasn't working because her wife stopped helping her. That bitch, if it wasn't for her brother, I would have slapped the shit out of her, shouted Rotnem in his office as he reached the tipping point. Although he shouted that, but he knew the moment he rose his hand to her, he is considered dead. I mean, you can't divorce me even if you want. It's not like I wanted to marry you anyway. Your fucking brother forced me. Fuck, he continued shouting. His secretary, also a cheating partner, entered the room due to hearing him shouting from the outside. What's wrong with you? Why are shouting from nowhere? You are attracting too much attention, said the secretary. It's my office, so who cares? The secretary rolled her eyes in a giving up way and said, they still think that you are still traumatized from the presentation. Rotnem released a sigh, then said, I could have moved away from it, but that bitch doesn't want to help me. But why did she even help you in the first place? She asked. I don't know why, but now that I think about it, it seems like she knew about the mistake in the thesis and she wanted to embarrass me in front of those reputable people in the industry to use it as a ground for divorce, said Rotnem as he was contemplating. He became more sure by the second after he realized it. Why would she do that? Asked the secretary in confusion as she didn't understand why. As you know, We didn't get married because we loved each other. It was arranged married by her brother, he replied and paused a little. Secretary did this to show that she was listening, and he can continue with his explanation. And since she couldn't deny the marriage, she needed to find legitimate ways to annul the marriage. He continued with his explanation. But since she didn't manage to find evidence of me cheating on her, she decided to go on the route of using my incompetence being a stain in the family as the ground for divorce, finished explaining as he started getting angrier by the second. You were pretty sloppy in hiding it anyway. So, why couldn't she find the evidence? The curious secretary asked. Her brother seems to be blocking her attempts of getting the evidence, he replied while giving her the side eye for calling him sloppy. Okay, it's up to you. But keep your voice down. You are embarrassing yourself to your students and colleagues, the secretary said, and started leaving the office to avoid having him exploding on her, as she really liked the salary for her job and his money. After the secretary left the office, he returned back to doing his jobs. Although he was informed that Aaron has paid his department in full, but after he rehired the private investigator, he didn't manage to find anything much, because due to Aaron having too much money in his account, its information was more secured, so he couldn't find any more information about it. So, his conclusion was that he took a private loan with an interest rate a little bit lower than the 15% he made him have. This still made him happy because it meant that he was still in debt, and he wasn't going to overcome it anytime soon. The reason he redirected his revenge to Aaron is because he couldn't vent it to his wife, leaving only him as a choice. Just as he was about to continue relieve the happy mood he has when he remembers that he was the one who destroyed someone's bright future, a phone call interrupted it. Who the fuck is this? He shouted as he picked the phone without looking at the caller on the phone. He could do that because if it was important, it would have gone through his secretary and not directly to his phone. So, he decided to vent the anger to the one on the other side of the phone. I called to inform you that there will be a family dinner and you, as Madam's husband, is expected to attend it. Also, the head of the family is going to attend it, said the voice on the other side of the phone without stooping or breaking his or her voice, showing that he or she was neither scarred nor sorry about disturbing him in his leisure time at all. Just as he was about to continue his bantering, the call was ended by the caller before he even started forming the words. When he realized the call was ended, in his anger he punted the office phone to the other side of the room while shouting in anger, Who the fuck do you think you are to call me and end the call whenever the fuck you want? Although I might not be from an important member in my family to the point they threw me to marry that fucking bitch for the sake of some fucking false connection that they could abandon anytime, I'm still a member of the fucking Morgan family. Show some fucking respect. Yes, he comes from another powerful family, but since he was from the Branch family, they sacrificed him to the Rothschilds for the sake of some agreement. Normally, he would have married some random member from the Rothschilds' Branch family, but due to his wife's brother interference, he made her marry him the moment she lost the inheritance war as his revenge to her, because he knew that if she wanted to continue having a chance in the future, she couldn't deny him. Hence the marriage. That's why he accepts bribe, because he needed money to avoid his wife finding out where he spends his money from his financial statements. This prevented his wife from using the money trail to know where he spends his time or his cheating locations for proof. After trashing a few things in his office out of anger, he calmed down a little and sat in his chair to start pondering the reason why they called for the dinner. Usually when there is a full family dinner, it means that there is an important topic to be discussed. If it was about the thesis, this would have taken a few months ago. So what is the purpose for it? He said as he started contemplating for the reason. When he couldn't come up with one, he decided to take out his phone and open the contacts to find out his wife's phone number. He hovered above the call button and contemplated whether it was worth to hear that bitch's voice just to satisfy his curiosity. In the end, he decided against it and returned the phone to his pocket. Since it's not about me, there is no need to know anyway, so fuck it, said the man, unknowing of his upcoming fate. Narrated someone in the void of somewhere. That evening, somewhere in California's quiet location where the rich build their mansion, there was a wall that seemed endless. It was covered by electric fences and security cameras after every 100 meters. This was also followed by patrol cars that went around the wall every 30 minutes. At the center of the giant, empty but walled forest, there was a large mansion that could be seen lit by lights, making it be seen from everywhere. Usually the house is calm, but today, rows and rows of cars kept coming one after another endlessly. One by one, The main branch family members arrived to the mansion earlier than the planned meeting time, due to them wanting to be there before the family had arrived. Lastly, the family had arrived in a long, luxurious limo escorted by a security car from the front, and behind filled with fully armed bodyguards. If you ignore the noise being caused by the people on the lawn, you could hear a helicopter going around the forest, making sure no one could sneak in. The moment he came out of the limo, the surrounding people become quiet and formed a corridor by standing on two lines to wait for the family head to pass through for them to greet him and show their respects. After greetings, everyone moved to the dining room for the food while hiding their nervousness as they didn't know the reason for the sudden meeting today. Even after they asked around, they found out that no one knew the reason for the meeting at all. This was the beginning of the hell for some dude who attended the meeting and was acting as gently as a sheep, unlike how he was when he was told he would have to attend. May he survive through it with strong mind. The family mansion glimmered in the moonlight as guests arrived for a dinner like no other. The opulent estate was a sight to behold, with its grand entrance and immaculate gardens. The evening promised to be one of exquisite taste and extravagance, with no expense spared in the preparations. The dining room was adorned with the finest linens, crystal glassware, and silver cutlery, all carefully arranged to perfection. As the family members took their seats at the table, they were greeted by the tantalizing aroma of the sumptuous feast that awaited them. It was clear that no detail had been overlooked in creating a dining experience that would leave a lasting impression on all who attended. This was to be a meal fit for royalty, served in the grandest of settings, and enjoyed by the most discerning of palates. But despite the beautifulness and grandeur of it, no one seemed to be too hyped up for the food, as most of them couldn't enjoy the food due to their nervousness. Although they had elite education since childhood, they couldn't keep up the pretense when the family head was on the same table with them. They looked at him nervously with mixed emotions on their face. Respect and fear could be described to be the most prevalent one. "Father, how have you been doing these days?" asked the next head of the family. He was the next head of the family's massive business empire, and his name is Arya Noga Johannatan Stav Rothschild. He was among the few on the dinner table who could keep their calm. The other one was his younger sister, who she won against. His father ignored him and continued enjoying his food. No one considered it an awkward moment, as they knew that the family head disliked having small talks. So, Arya brought this on himself because he wanted to put himself in that matter, is due to want to be seen as a caring person by his father and the head of the family. The meal continued, and no one tried talking to the head of the family anymore, but they talked between each other, albeit quietly, to not attract attention. After the meal, the table was cleaned by house servants. Everyone gathered on the table again for the meeting to start. After everyone sat down, one of the servants went to inform the family head in his room that everyone was waiting for him for the meeting to start. When the family came from his room and sat down, he took a deep breath and said, "Let's start the meeting," while looking at his daughter Rena, implying that she was the one who called for the meeting. This came as a surprise to his brother, as he expected her to be quiet until she finds a way to escape her marriage. Did she find evidence about it? Arya asked himself in his mind. No, she couldn't have found them, as I worked my ass to keep them covered, reassured himself after a few seconds of thinking. This was all blew to the wind when the first words her sister said was, "I want a divorce, Rodem. You know that you can't just do that, right?" He jumped right to it to break down any momentum she could have gained from that sentence. "I can, if I have evidence to substantiate it," she replied while focusing on her father and ignoring him. "You need to give us evidence before the meeting so that we can prepare for it," his brother cut right in without waiting for his father's reply. Though usually smart, he loses his mind when it comes to arguing with her sister, hence all these shitty blunders. "To give you them for what? So that you can make it seem fake?" she replied after getting fed up with him messing with her plan to have her father agree to her presenting her evidence for it. Their father just sat there quietly listening to them bantering. Then he suddenly coughed to shut them up, said while looking at his daughter in a heavy voice. "You know that you need to have good evidence to make our family agree to tarnishing our names for the divorce, right?" When his brother heard their father saying that, he knew his chances of preventing her from even continuing has failed. The reason he made her sister marry Rodem is because he knew that in their family, if you want to have a divorce, you have to present it to the family, and they need conclusive evidence for them to agree to you divorcing. Because to them having a divorce was a great shame to them, this was why he kept preventing her sister from finding any evidence of his husband's misdeeds. You may ask, why didn't he just threaten Rotem to stop him from cheating? If he did that, Rotem would have found that his brother was worried about his sister finding out and being too desperate that he would have used it as blackmail material. He couldn't just kill him either, as that would mean a war between families. It doesn't matter how insignificant Rotem was to the Morgan family, just the act of killing him meant that you don't think of them as a threat to you. And although they were not as powerful as them, Rothschilds, in some aspects they had more power in other places, and that might come and bite them in the ass. Hence the reason he is alive. Also, it would mean her sister will be free as her husband will be dead. Yes, Father, I do know that. That's why I found a concrete evidence to make it so that not only will our reputation not be smeared, but it will also give us a small card against the Morgans, albeit he is not important to them, she said while looking at her husband. Her father nodded, meaning that she can begin the explanation. When she got the confirmation from her father, she turned to one of the servant and nodded, making the servant leave the room and return with a projector. When the servant entered the room with the projector, the other servants went ahead and started helping him set things up. After they finished setting the projector up, she headed to the computer on the table and took out a USB from her pocket and inserted it. Rothem's side of view. The food was good, but why the fuck do they have to make me come here every fucking meeting? Even though they won't allow me to talk anyway, thought Rothem as he was seated the farthest from the family head. He complained because the seating in these meetings is planned based on their hierarchy on the family. Starting from the family head, followed by Arya, then his wife and so on. This continued until it reached him, the last one. He was calm because he was sure it was not important to him. But this calmness disappeared the moment the bitch said, "I want to divorce Rothem." That bitch is uttering nonsense again, he thought, because he knew that although the family knows that they don't even like each other, they can't just divorce due to it. You need reasonable explanation for it to be allowed. And know that they barely allow it even in those circumstances, as you needed concrete evidence to prove it, and he was sure she doesn't have any, because he wasn't caught for years since he started doing it. Looks like this night is going to be a good one for Arya. He thought, due to knowing that she most likely didn't have evidence and her brother would cook her for the mistakes, as he never wastes any opportunity to undermine his sister. His expression remained neutral, but inside, it could only be described as euphoria. This was due to the bliss he was having, as he expected the bitch to be shot down for requesting to divorce him and having a chance to see her reaction. He didn't want to divorce her because him marrying her not only elevated his position in his family a little bit higher, but also since he could have everything he is not getting from his wife through other means, he felt that he is not missing on anything other than consummation with the bitch. So he continued watching the show as the expectation of it nearly busted from him, but he suddenly scrunched his face due to what he was seeing in front of his eyes. FUCK is the first thing that came up in his mind due to what he saw. The gravity of the situation started sinking, becoming darker than a black hole by the second, due to the evidence the bitch was providing and the eyes of disgust coming from the family members in the room. Where did that bitch find that information? As his mouth blurted those words, his eyes widened in horror due to his brain understanding what he just said with a little bit of ping. It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up. The family head turned to him with eyes that said, "You are fucked now," but he didn't linger his gaze for longer as he turned to the guards, who nodded their heads and headed to him and started to drag him out of the room. He struggled to shout to try to defend himself, but it fell on deaf ears as everyone returned their eyes to the projected material on the screen. As he was thrown out of the room, the euphoria in his face replaced by the fear of what is to come, he prayed that the earth split and swallow him as a whole to save him from it. Inside the bedroom, Rothem could be seen sitting on the side of the bed, with both his hands supporting his head while using the knees and laps as the foundation. He was currently shaking, albeit slowly, as he remembered the last word he heard from his wife's family head. The moment he was shown the evidence, he knew, even if he tried to defend himself, as they had everything backing them up from the device, time and locations they were sent from to the receiver's IP address. Even he, as a computer engineer, was having a headache how she even managed to collect them, as he remembered changing his phone quite a few times. After a few hours spent thinking, he came up with the only reasonable explanation he could think of, which was that someone managed to trace everything by using just his phone number and email as the anchoring point and tracing the strings from there. Although the idea seemed plausible, If he tried executing it, he would fail at the first step, so he just equated it to the capabilities of the Rothschilds' family security team's masterwork, and with that he gave up thinking of how they even did it. Now he started thinking how the Morgans would react to it. He expected that he will be disavowed by the family due to this blunder. This realization came to him like crashing to the sun. Although him having a divorce might mean nothing to the Morgans, they will need to keep the appearance of wanting to continue the little peace they managed to negotiate with the Rothschilds, which was finalized by his marriage. The Morgans needed to keep this pretense as long as they can, due to them still having not recovered to their previous state, due to their last financial war with the Rothschilds that led to the '08 financial crisis. It dealt a heavy blow to them. This gave him a 100% certainty that he will be abandoned by the family and be considered as a small price to pay for peace. At least they will not take everything from me. They will consider it as the payment for serving them, thought wrought him, as he expected his family to not take anything from him, but just not support him on any of his future endeavors. What calmed him down the most was that, to the outside world, he was still a professor of the famous Columbia University, meaning that he could still earn money, albeit small compared to his previous earnings. He could still subsidize them with the usual bribes he was used to taking. So the only thing he will be missing will be his family's backing only. At least I will be free from their control from now on. He tried to console himself by trying to spin it as a positive thing. I will just be a normal professor, meaning I will not have anyone watching my back anymore. He added delusion on top of delusion. Plus, I won't have to see the bitch's face anymore. He broke into a creepy smile at the thought of it. After spending more than half an hour trying to re-earn his confidence, he needed to vent the frustration, so he took the phone from the bedside and called his mistress. Drrr, drrr, drrr. Hello, who is this? A sleepy voice came from the other side of the phone. I'm coming to your house, prepare yourself. He started talking without waiting for the sleepy head secretary to fully wake up. I'm sleepy, can we do it tomorrow? Asked the secretary, knowing that if he comes she won't be sleeping anytime soon. As the secretary was waiting for the answer after trying to convey that she was tired, what she received was a sound of the call ending. Meaning the moment he said he was coming, he didn't even wait for her answer. This fucker, thought the secretary as she left the bed and went to the bathroom to prepare to welcome him. But this was followed with some very inventive slurs from her side. He should be thankfully he couldn't hear them, else it might break his mind. They were as deadly as InfoHazard could be. Somewhere in America, two Russians could be seen sitting in an obscured bench in a park. One of them had a dong while the other one had a beard, and could be seen reading a newspaper to attract too much attention. What did you find out about the NATO's last meeting? Asked the one reading a gazette. From our moles we didn't learn too much as it is still confidential, but they managed to find out that a week after the NATO meeting, a team of representatives from NATO arrived in the U.S., replied the other man as he pat the dog, making it shake its tail from happiness. Doesn't that happen when NATO needs to negotiate with the U.S.? This time is different. A day after they arrived, they headed to a small company for a meeting with them. What does that company deal with? Asked the bearded man, while flipping to the next page in the newspaper. A short investigation revealed that it deals with technology, but since they haven't still released any product, we couldn't find out for sure what it is. But we found out that, a month after they were registered, they contacted the FBI, CIA, and many other agencies for cooperation. This made those agencies have a back and forth between them, but it stopped at once when the NSA made its move. The man stopped to try and remove his dog from him as it was licking his face. He removed the rope from its neck and set it free to go and roam around the park, while he returned to continue with his explanation. After the NSA intervened, all agencies stopped their meetings at once. This continued until about a month and a half later. There was an emergency NATO meeting. From our mole on the inside, we learned that it was about some security program, or something similar to that. He finished explaining to the bearded man. You suspect that it has something to do with the NATO having emergency meeting? Asked the bearded man. There is more from where that came from. We also suspect that they are behind the social media security update issue we couldn't solve, added the dog's human. When the bearded man heard the words, he stopped looking at his newspaper and turned to the other man with a look of surprise and asked, What connects them? You said the company was found for only about 3 months, and that situation is nearly 4 months old. When we investigated the social media companies, we found out there was a law firm that contacted them for their security problems, and after combing through the CCTV's footages, we found out which law firm was it. But by the time we found it, it was already bought by GIA Technology, which is the same company as the one having the meeting with NATO guys. That's where our suspiciousness comes from, explained the man. Continue keeping an eye on the company. Also find out who the owner is, and everything there is to know about the company. Understood? Said the bearded man while closing the newspaper and standing from the anti-homeless bench. Then he left without waiting for an answer. The remaining guy just looked at the direction the bearded man left. Then he called his dog and left for the other side of the road. "Stop, you are hurting me," shouted the secretary in desperation, while looking messed up and bruised. The professor wasn't gentle at all. He kept slapping and banging her body to the wall like pillow or something, causing her to have bruises all over her body. "Shut up, you bitch," said Rotem as he slapped the back of her head, making her fall to the floor. He didn't care and continued doing his thing while imagining his ex-wife's face on the secretary, making him fuck her harder like she wanted to break her or something. The secretary begged him to stop, but the more she begged, the more he saw the bitch's face on her, making him go harder than before. This continued for about half an hour, until she started bleeding from down there and fainted. Only then did he come to himself and stopped what he was doing. He just stood and headed to the bathroom while angry, not to himself but to the secretary for dirtying his body with blood and ruining his fun. After he took shower, he just took some money from his wallet and threw it on the bed, making it rain. Then he left without even looking if she was doing all right or not, as he was not done venting. He was heading to whore house or something similar to it to continue his venting. 10 minutes after he left, the secretary woke up. She just stayed there for about 5 minutes contemplating why her life was like this. This contemplation continued a little more until she stood from the bed and headed to the watch on the wall that was blinking red if you look at it carefully. She took a long time, his whole body was in too much pain, but she managed to reach it and take it down. Then she returned to her bed. "Hope this will save me from doing this anymore," she said as she shed tears, feeling bad for herself. She opened the back of the watch to remove the flash drive that was inserted there to save the videos. "With this, that man will end my miserable life." She smiled at the thought of not having to give her body to earn something anymore. Although the man said he just needed an evidence to incriminate the scumbag Rodem, nothing beats sexual assaulting and raping your assistant when it comes to destroying someone's life. She smiled at the thought of it. And with that, the final piece of his downfall was completed. What remained was the domino of pieces to start falling. It took Rodem 2 days for him to return to his soon-not-to-be home. When he entered the house, he found that his bags had been packed and placed on the opening after the entrance. He knew who could make the servant do this, but since he planned on leaving the house in a week anyway, he decided to leave today, since they already packed his stuffs already. Why waste more time, right? He called for the servants and ordered them to put his luggages in the car. Although the servants complained due to him no longer being a member of the family, they decided to just shut up and done with it. They considered it as a goodbye service. He left the house for the last time and headed to a 3-star hotel to start his stay there for a short time, while he looked for a house that suited his taste. He was happy that he was free, and his 2-day freedom gave him euphoria as he didn't have to worry about anyone anymore. He felt excited to continue having this feeling for the foreseeable future. GIA Technologies HQ. Sarah could be seen sitting in her office reading a pile of documents the size of dictionary. Our agreement with Amazon Web Services, AWS, is done, meaning we can now host our subscription services through them. Just like Netflix, she signed the document that had the web service agreement on it and moved to the next documents. Just as she was about to read the next document, her office call interrupted her momentum. "Hello, ma'am," said the secretary. "What is it?" asked Sarah as she remembered that. She told her secretary to call her instead of just entering the room and break her focus. "We received a call from the legal team. They told us that the NATO representative have agreed to our demand and would like to sign it as soon as possible." "Good. Tell the legal team to proceed with the necessary preparations. I will handle the rest," replied Sarah while smiling as she was happy to have managed to complete her first billion-dollar contract without having too much of a problem. She immediately took her phone and called Aaron to share the good news with his friend and owner of the company. "Sarah, what is it?" asked Aaron on the other side of the phone. "So I can't call you to just talk now?" Is it? Sarah teased Aaron. When I did that in the past, you said I should not call you during work hours. That's why I was wondering what came in you to call me. I called you to inform about our deal with NATO. Sarah went to the topic directly as it was her work hours. They agreed? Yes, they did, replied Sarah without hiding her happiness. That was fast. It seems they are that desperate, right? Yeah, it seems so, as it took them only 3 days to come to a decision. Maybe we came with a solution right when they needed it, agreed Sarah with Aaron's speculations. So, when are you planning to come to the signing of the agreement? Sarah asked Aaron. What do you mean? Aren't you the CEO? Why do you need me there? Confusion could be heard in his voice. You don't want to attend the signing agreement? Shouldn't it be as important to you as it is to me? Asked Sarah as she expected him to agree immediately. Currently I'm dealing with something important, but if the signing is next week, I can manage to attend it. So when is the signing day? I will set it for next week Thursday. Make sure you attend it, okay? I will make sure I'm there. See you. Aaron agreed to the day and bid her farewell. See you too, replied Sarah and ended the phone call. Then she called her secretary to inform them about setting the agreement signing day to be of the next week's Thursday. After giving her instructions, she returned to her daily work. Rachel, I have what you want. You will keep your promise, right? Aaron, don't worry, I will keep mine if you keep your. Rachel, I'm sending you the footage of it. Aaron, sure. Rachel, video 1.mp4, size 45 MB. Aaron, let me take a look at it. 3 minutes later. Rachel, are you done watching? Aaron, what is this? Why did you do that? I said I need evidence to incriminate him, not have yourself nearly killed. Rachel, you said the better evidence, the better the pay. Aaron, but this is too much. Why did you allow him? Rachel, I needed that money if I'm going to leave him. Aaron, anyway, keep the footage until I tell you to use it. Rachel, okay. So when are you going to send me the money? Aaron, if I send it now, it can be used as evidence of conspiracy. So, I will wire small amount now and the remaining after the case. But if you have an account that is not in your name, I can send the full payment to you using that account. Rachel, how about PayPal? If I use someone else's phone number? Aaron, sure. Send me the email so that I can transfer the payment to you. Rachel, Aaron, sure, let me send it. Aaron transferred a $1.5 million from his bank account to his PayPal's one. Then he sent half of it. As the first payment, the rest he will send it just after she finished what he needed her to do. Aaron, I sent half of it. Did you receive it? Rachel, yes. Thank you. Aaron, the rest will be sent when we finish our agreement, and for now, go to the hospital to have a doctor's report as it can be used as evidence of assault. Rachel, I have already done that yesterday. Aaron, okay then. With that, the conversation between Aaron and Rachel, the professor's secretary, came to an end. This plan was started when Aaron needed to punish the professor using law, but if he wanted to use as evidence, they might state that it was a stolen information and can't be used as evidence in court. But for all that to even begin, someone needed to sue him, or the prosecutor general take the case to even begin. After a few minutes of thinking, he remembered the secretary that was cheating with the professor. He contacted her and told her that the professor's career is about to come to an end. When she didn't believe him, he sent her some of the soon-to-be-released evidence that will turn his words from rumor to facts. After he convinced her, he gave her a way out, as he knew that he was with the professor not because of love, but because of his money. He promised to pay her based on any evidence she could provide that could incriminate the professor, but the minimum payment was $100,000. When he promised her that he didn't expect to use herself as the evidence. But after he spent a few minutes feeling bad, he reminded himself that she is the one that took this choice herself, so this eased his guilt a little bit. This is also a reason why he decided to pay her a total of $1.5 million to remove his remaining guilt. But after a small moment of thinking, he found that he could use this as a 2+1 blow. He will make the secretary sue the professor for rape, which in return will make the professor emotionally damaged due to betrayal, and since there is video evidence backing the claim of her pleading for him to stop but him continuing with the act, he will be sent to jail for certainty and or be made to pay her massive compensation. When all that is taken care, he will pay the remaining money to her and allow him to finally soothe his anger. He returned to continue with his work. A day after moving into the hotel, he finally started going to the university. He finally started taking his teaching job seriously, as it was now his only way to earn money, either through bribes from rich students' parents or through his salary. When he returned to the university, he was informed that Rachel has taken a sick leave and won't be coming to the university for about a week. This reminded of what condition he left her, making him know he was the reason for it. Instead of feeling remorse, he felt proud of himself. Why should he feel sorry for being a great lover? Contrary to it, he felt proud of himself. His delusion made him think that he fucked her till she needed to take a sick leave. So, for this week, his secretary will be replaced by a student volunteer who was chosen from his class.